The prairie was quiet that evening, save for the rhythmic clop of hooves as Cole guided his horse along the edge of the woods. The sun hung low, casting long shadows across the grass, and the air carried the faint scent of rain. He wasn't supposed to be this far from the ranch, but something had pulled him toward the grove, an unease he couldn't explain. As he rode closer, he spotted movement among the trees. A flash of fabric, a figure slumped against the trunk of a sycamore. Cole's brow furrowed. He dismounted and approached cautiously, his boots crunching softly on dry leaves. She was young, no older than 20, with long black hair tangled over her face and rope biting deep into her wrists. Her dress, once white, was tattered and streaked with dirt. Dry blood stained her bare feet. For a moment, Cole thought she might already be dead, but then he saw her chest rise and fall, shallow, uneven breaths. "Miss?" he called softly, not wanting to startle her. Her head jerked up, eyes wide with terror. Dark eyes, sharp and alert despite the weakness in her limbs. She struggled against the ropes, but they held firm. "Easy," Cole murmured, lifting his hands to show he meant no harm. "I'm not here to hurt you." She didn't answer. Her lips parted, but no words came out, only a dry rasp. Cole stepped closer, drawing his knife. The girl flinched violently. "Don't worry," he said gently. "Just gonna cut you loose." The rope fell away with a final slice, and she collapsed forward into his arms. Her body was light, too light, like a bird half-starved through winter. He could feel her trembling as he held her steady. "Who did this to you?" he asked, but she only shook her head, her gaze darting nervously toward the woods as if expecting her captors to return. Cole glanced around, his instincts sharp. Whoever left her here might still be close. He couldn't risk lingering. Adjusting his grip, he lifted her carefully and carried her toward his horse. "You're safe now," he murmured, though he wasn't sure she believed it, or if he did. As he settled her in the saddle before him, Cole couldn't help but wonder what kind of men would leave a girl to die bound to a tree, and why the sight of her had cracked something open in his chest that he thought had long turned to stone. Cole's cabin sat in a quiet hollow surrounded by whispering pines. The ride back had been slow and careful, with the girl's limp body resting against his chest as if she weighed nothing. Her shallow breaths brushed his shirt, each one a fragile thread holding her to life. By the time he reached the cabin, the sun had dipped below the horizon, and a chill crept into the air. He pushed open the heavy door with his shoulder and carried her inside. The room was small but warm, the scent of cedarwood lingering from the fire he'd kept smoldering. Cole laid her gently on his cot, pulling a wool blanket over her thin frame. She stirred slightly, her eyelids fluttering open before sinking closed again. "You're safe now," he murmured, though he doubted she could hear him. He worked quickly, lighting a lantern and fetching water from the barrel. When he returned, he knelt by her side and offered a cup to her lips. At first, she didn't respond, but then she sipped weakly, the water dribbling down her chin. "Name's Cole," he said softly, studying her face. "You got a name?" For a long moment, there was silence. Then, in a hoarse whisper, she replied, "Ahiv." It was a Cherokee name. Cole's chest tightened. He'd heard whispers of Cherokee families living deep in these woods, trying to hold on to their way of life as settlers pushed westward. He wondered if she had been taken because of who she was, or because of what she wasn't. Over the next 2 days, Ahiv barely spoke. Cole tended to her wounds in silence, cleaning the rope burns on her wrists and feeding her small bowls of broth. Each time he looked at her, he felt a pang in his chest he couldn't explain. She wasn't just scared, she was broken in a way he recognized. On the third night, she spoke again. "They took me." Her voice cracked. "Said they'd sell me. When I ran, they caught me and left me there." Cole's jaw tightened. He'd seen cruelty before, men who thought money gave them the right to take whatever they pleased. But this felt different. "They won't hurt you again," he said, his voice low and steady. "I swear it." Ahiv turned her head slightly, her dark eyes meeting his. For the first time, he saw a flicker of trust there. By the end of the week, Ahiv was strong enough to sit outside, wrapped in Cole's wool blanket as the early spring sun spread soft light across the hollow. Cole worked nearby, mending a broken fence post, but his eyes kept drifting back to her. She sat on the porch steps, knees pulled to her chest, watching a pair of bluebirds flutter between the trees. Her dark hair, freshly washed, hung in loose waves down her back. At first, the silence between them had been heavy, awkward, but now it felt like something else, like a truce. Cole set his hammer down and walked toward her, brushing the dirt from his hands. "How are you feeling?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then nodded. "Better." Her voice was quiet, but no longer raw with fear. "You're safe here," Cole said, sitting on the edge of the steps. "No one's going to hurt you again." Ahiv didn't answer right away. Her eyes stayed on the birds as she whispered. "Men from the town, they wanted to trade me. Said Cherokee girls were worth good money." Her hands tightened around the blanket. "When I ran, they tied me to the tree. Said I'd stay there till the next buyer came." Cole felt his jaw clench. Anger burned in his gut, not just for what had been done to her, but for how familiar her words felt. He'd lost his wife and son years ago to a fever, but he knew too well the helplessness of watching someone you love suffer. "You ain't property," he said firmly. "You hear me? You're not a thing to be sold." Ahiv looked at him then, her dark eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Why? Why are you helping me?" Cole exhaled slowly. "Maybe 'cause I know what it's like to lose everything." He stared at his calloused hands. "And maybe I don't want to feel that hollow no more." For the first time, a faint smile tugged at her lips. It was small, tentative, but it was there. That night, after supper, Ahiv surprised him by asking softly, "What's the word for home in your language?" Cole blinked, then said, "Home." She repeated it carefully, as if testing the word on her tongue. "Home." And somehow, hearing her say, it made Cole's cabin feel warmer than it had in years. The day began like any other, soft morning light spilling across the meadow, the quiet hum of bees drifting near the porch. Ahiv was kneeling in the small garden beside the cabin, her hands deep in the dark soil as she coaxed green shoots upright. Cole leaned against the porch post, watching her with a quiet sense of wonder. It had been weeks since he found her bound to that tree, but the fear in her eyes had begun to fade. Now there was something softer there, something alive. Then he heard it, the distant sound of hooves. Cole's head snapped up, hand resting instinctively on the rifle by the door. Riders were emerging from the trees, their silhouettes growing larger as they neared the hollow. He counted half a dozen, no more. Their movements were calm but deliberate, and sunlight glinted off the beads and feathers woven into their clothing. Ahiv froze, her hands trembling in the dirt. Her lips parted in a sharp gasp. "It's them," she whispered. Cole stiffened. "The men who?" She shook her head. "No, my people. My clan." Before he could react, she was on her feet, running across the field toward the approaching riders. A tall man at the front dismounted first. His long braids swung forward as Ahiv reached him and threw her arms around his neck. "Father," she cried in Cherokee. Cole lowered the rifle, his shoulders loosening slightly. These weren't attackers, they were family. The other riders dismounted, surrounding Ahiv with embraces and murmured words. One of the older women stroked her hair, as if to reassure herself the girl was real. Then the tall man looked up at Cole. His eyes were dark, unreadable, but there was no malice in them, only a quiet strength. He walked forward, his boots silent in the grass, and stopped a few feet away. "You found her," he said in halting English. Cole nodded. "She was bound to a tree, left to die." The man's jaw tightened, and his gaze softened as he studied the rancher. "You saved my daughter." "She saved herself," Cole replied gruffly. "I just gave her a place to heal." The man extended his hand. "I am Dakota. You are welcome among us." For the first time in years, Cole felt something stir deep in his chest, a sense of belonging he thought he'd buried long ago. The air was thick with the scent of wood smoke and wildflowers as the Cherokee clan set up camp near the hollow. That night, the meadow glowed with firelight and laughter. Cole watched from the edge of his porch, unsure if he should step forward. He wasn't used to being around so many people anymore. His life had been nothing but silence and empty rooms for years. Ahiv glanced over her shoulder, her dark eyes searching for him in the shadows. She stood from where she'd been speaking with the elders and walked toward him, her braids swinging softly against her back. "They're not here to take me away," she said gently, her voice carrying the calm of someone who had finally found her footing again. "They came to bring me home, but I told them I've already found one." Cole's throat tightened. He'd never asked her to stay, never wanted her to feel like she owed him anything. But the thought of her leaving had settled like a stone in his gut these past few hours. "You're sure?" he asked quietly. Ahiv nodded, stepping closer. "You gave me back my life, Cole. My family sees it too. They want you to be part of us, if you'll have us." Before he could reply, Dakota approached, his presence calm but commanding. The Cherokee elders studied Cole for a long moment, then placed a weathered hand on his shoulder. "You are not a man apart," Dakota said in his deep, steady voice. "Not anymore. My daughter's heart has chosen. That makes you family." Cole had no words, only a tightness in his chest that felt like something cracking open after years of being locked away. In the weeks that followed, the clan came and went, but Ahiv stayed. Together, she and Cole worked the land, raised chickens, and built a new fence along the southern pasture. The cabin that once echoed with emptiness now rang with soft Cherokee songs and quiet laughter in the evenings. One golden afternoon, as they stood in the meadow, Ahiv placed a small wildflower in Cole's hand. "In my language," she whispered, "this flower means new beginning." Cole smiled, curling his fingers around it. "Then that's what this is. For both of us." And as the sun dipped low, painting the horizon in fiery colors, the lonely rancher realized he wasn't alone anymore. He hadn't just saved her, she'd save him too.